McLaren has just unveiled the successor to the 720S, the 750S. And some people I know they're not going to be happy with this design because there's basically not a lot of changes made from the 720S to the 750. But me personally, I think this is a fantastic design still today, and I'm going to let you know why in just a minute. The thing is, when I look at car designs today, the majority of car companies, they're moving away from automotive design and into product and industrial design. There's a huge difference between automotive and industrial design. Automotive is supposed to be a sculpture. It's not supposed to be all function and all technology. You need to have an emotional part to an automotive design, which you don't need to have in industrial designs. And with all these new EVs, not just the designs are getting more industrialized, but also the overall technology and the feel of driving a car. We're losing that connection that we used to have for so long with cars when it comes to not just the design, but also the driving experience. And thankfully, McLaren is still one of these companies that puts a lot of pride in making gorgeous looking cars. It doesn't have to be all functional, but in this case it actually is because of the wind resistance and so on shaping the shape of the car. But we're gonna have a look at what's different from the 720S here compared to the 750 from the front, side, rear, and also the interior. There are a couple of big changes in the interior. First of all, let's have a look at this article from Road and Track. I'm gonna link this down in the description if you want to go and check it out. So McLaren says the 30% of all the pieces on the 750S are brand new, and it also weighs 66 pounds less than the 720S. McLaren says that the 750S Coupe does 0 to 60 miles per hour in 2.7 seconds and 0 to 124 miles per hour, or 0 to 200 kilometers an hour in 7.2 seconds, which is insane. The output from the 4-liter twin-turbo V8 is up to 740 horsepower and 590 pound-feet of torque, thanks to increased boost pressure, new twin fuel pumps, and a triple-layer head gasket. You also have a 7-speed dual-clutch gearbox that shifts a lot faster than the old one. Shifts are up by 10%, so maybe not a lot faster, but it's still very quick because the 720S has some super snappy shifts in it already. And what I love about McLaren's technology when it comes to the ride quality is they have this proactive chassis control system, which gives McLaren luxury sedan ride quality in one moment. Switch a button and all of a sudden you have a Formula 1 handling car. So the bodywork tweaks, they help to increase downforce and better balance the aero load front to rear. And in the interior, this is what I'm talking about, the big changes here. You don't have this fold-away gauge cluster, which I think was super cool in the 720S, and something that I don't think I've seen in any other car, but they got rid of that, and now you have the same kind of unit that you have in the Artura. Not a bad thing at all. It still looks very nice. We're gonna have a look at that in just a second. And the infotainment system can now come standard with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. You also have a system that now raises the nose of the car in 4 seconds compared to 10 seconds in the 720S. And this is I think this is an important feature for people owning this car. For example, if you want to get up to a gas station, you have a bit of a hump right before you get up. You don't want to wait for 10 seconds to raise the car. You want that process to be quick. So the base price for the Coupe is $331,740. It goes up by about, I would say, $20,000 for the Spider. And this should also be the last non-hybrid McLaren model. So the last one without any additional power source added to it. But I hope McLaren is going to go the route that Lamborghini did. Just add a little bit, add a tiny small little 10 horsepower electric motor and call it a hybrid with a V12 powering the rest of the car. Let's jump into this design here and let's have a look at the front and the side and the rear and the interior. And I have a lot to say about this design because I loved it when the 720 came out in 2017, and it feels like just yesterday when I saw this design with these eyeballs sitting deep inside of this eye socket right here, skeleton-like front end, but everything has a purpose and everything is shaped in a wind tunnel to make this the most efficient design going through the air. And when you do that, when you listen to what nature has to tell you of how to design a car, it automatically becomes a gorgeous looking sculpture on wheels, and that's exactly what we have in the 720S. So what's different here from the front side of the 720, comparing it to the 750 down here, you can see that there's not a lot of differences. They say that this part is now narrower, but I'm not sure I can visually see that. Maybe this feels a little taller than what we have in the 750S. You also see that we don't have a lot of complexities like we have down here in the 720, like we have in the 750. They cleaned this lower part up a lot. We still have a tiny front lip spoiler down here, but all of this is now body colored, and I kind of like how it looks with this new design. This still looked very good, but this just cleans it up a little bit and makes it less complex in the front end. But one detail, the biggest change that I really like in the front end of the 750, that definitely plants the car in the front, are these angles, wings in the front end. They stick out a lot further now than they did, and they created, you can see it more here, I think, from this angle here. They stick out further and creates this ground effect in the front end where it hugs the ground in the front. And this, in combination with which what we're going to have a look at in the rear, the bigger wing, it just adds a lot of dynamic feeling to this design when you look at it from a side view. Other than those changes, I don't think I can see other changes. We still have this outlet or air duct being the same. The headlight actually seems to be the exact same unit as we had before. Again, I don't mind this at all because this feels like a super fresh design still today. So let's have a look at this gorgeous side view. If I had designed the 720 side view like this and it managed to go into production like we have here, I would probably just retire, because I would say I have designed the most beautiful side view I can possibly make, and that's about it. I can't make it any more beautiful than this. And I think this is such a stunning design, specifically with this line going right here and then swooping in to the side view and then up to the rear spoiler. And you have this fin here. You have no visible intakes on this side view, which is very interesting and unique for a mid-engine supercar like this is. Instead, the air intake sits between the windshield and the bodywork, so the wind actually comes in here and then goes into the engine behind everything. So it's a super clean design from a side view. And I also like the curvature right here of the greenhouse. Very nicely done. It feels like a capsule that kind of comes out from the bodywork and it's separated from the rest of the body, housing the passengers. This is what I'm talking about when I say sculpture on wheels. This surfacing, the surface treatment here of the new 750S, it reminds me of these rock formations. I think you found them in Utah or Arizona, where you walk into these small caves and you can see the swirling shapes of the rocks being shaped by the wind. And that's exactly what's going on here as well. And that's why I can see that connection between those rock formations and the design of this 750. Here you can see just how much further this front end sticks out. The point that sits the furthest forward right here is the nose in the 720, but in the 750, just look at how far these corner wings stick out, and I think it creates this beautiful, nice ground effect that we have in the 750. And you also have a larger wing in the rear. I think they said it's 10 or 12% larger, and this also helps when you're braking because this wing is going to pop up and create some air brake for you. The 720S and the 750S, these are two cars that symbolize why I love car design so much, specifically compare it to product design and industrial design and what makes car design special. Cars to me are not just items, they're not just products. Cars to me are the everyday pieces of art we all get to enjoy on a daily basis, just rolling around. And that's why I think it's so important to keep the styling aspect of car design intact and not just have it be a product that rolls around, some consumer electronic on wheels. I don't want to head in that direction. I feel like we are heading, unfortunately, in a direction where these cars these days are less about the beauty of the item, of the product itself, and more about the technology. Like Mercedes said yesterday in their official statement was that we focused more on the software than the hardware for the new E-Class. It just doesn't make sense to me. It's not supposed to be an industrial design. It still has to be an automotive design. The 720 and the 750, they symbolize that in a very good way because they are definitely sculptures on wheels in my opinion. So have a look at the rear view. We have a couple of changes here in the rear as well. And you can also see that this lower intake is different. Forgot to mention that in the side view. It's now angled this way instead of angled the other way. And I actually prefer the new one because it feels like it flows better in a side view. It feels like it has more of a contrasting line to this big sideline that we have here. Here they both go upswing like this. And there's no line that kind of drags the side back to the ground, which I think this angle does better than up here. Other than that, in the rear view, we have a couple of changes. For example, the exhaust pipe is now centered instead of having two separated exhaust pipes on each side. Still, a very beautiful looking design, this 720S. And if someone at McLaren are watching this, please give me a 750 to review in person and just walk around and analyze all the lines. I would love to do that at some point. Then we have this now. So they cleaned up the front end, but they made the rear end a little bit more complex with this air duct right here. You can see that it has a big, thick chamfer going around it. But the thing about this chamfer, if I remove this line, you see that it goes from straight and then a little corner and then straight again and then a little corner up here. What I would like to do is have this chamfer be more of a curvature like this. I think that would just make it feel nicer and make it feel a little bit more confident than the line we have here. Now I'm not sure if they wanted to kind of try to make it a curvature or have it be completely straight here. It feels like in between, and I'm not a fan when lines are somewhere in between something. You can't really tell what the designer's intentions were. I don't think the overall sizing changed from the 720, and I don't really think the interior pieces changed either. Maybe the material choices, but if we look at these two designs, we still have this line, we have these two fins, a fin in the middle, and we have this curvature for the diffuser itself. Same thing like we have here. We have these two lines here, a line in the middle, and the same curvature at the bottom. Again, I don't think this is a mistake. I don't think that they should have redesigned the 720S. This is a design that I think deserves to be alive for a lot longer than just, what is it, almost 6 years now. It's such a gorgeous design in my opinion. I feel like the British are actually taking over when it comes to elegance and emotion in their supercars from the Italians. I think the Italians are moving into a more complex design. It started with the F8 Tributo, which I think looked so messy all around. It wasn't Ferrari to me. This feels more like the elegance that Ferrari used to have, and McLaren is doing a fantastic job, not just with the 750S, but also with the Artura, for example. Just a stunning looking design. So these are the new interiors for the 750. Yes, we have the 720 up here, the 750 at the bottom. You can see that the middle section is pretty much identical. We do have a couple of new dials right here that doesn't look the same. They don't look the same as the ones we have here. And gone is this folding gauge cluster, which I think is maybe a little bit sad that we're losing that, but it still looks very good in the new 750 as this, as I said, been taken straight basically from the Artura. Nothing wrong with that. And then we have these interesting looking things on each side. It looks like something is growing on something organic is growing in each corner of the gauge cluster, but these are for the settings for the chassis and some additional settings for the suspensions and so on and the driving modes. And look at the steering wheel. Look at how clean this is. There's no buttons at all on the entire steering wheel, and how often do we see that today? You have big paddles that goes far above this spoke, both at the top and in the bottom, so you have no problems finding them whenever you need to. And we have a very tight looking gear selector down here. We have drive, neutral, and reverse. And this is another detail. The interiors of McLarens today is just something I appreciate in today's world, when we have screens being this big, stretching a big like 50-inch widescreen TV on most new cars today. This is what I want to see. A car company that still retains the values of automotive design in relation to industrial design, and also puts a lot of focus on the driving experience itself with zero distractions, as little distractions in the interior as possible. And you step into this car to do one thing, and that is to drive the car. I wish this kind of philosophy was transformed over to other brands and non-supercar brands as well, the cheap, the more affordable brands. But unfortunately, as I said, I feel like we're moving away from that type of philosophy and into this technology where you have essentially in the end what we're gonna have is just a consumer electronics product with some wheels on it. But hopefully McLaren sticks to this formula, and whatever they do next for the powertrains when they need to go into hybrids, I do hope that they keep the big V8s intact in the supercars and add just a sprinkle of electricity in there, just like Lamborghini did with the new Revuelto, for example.